We live on an old farm that has been empty for about 20 years. We have about 16.5 hectares of land, some meadows, some forests, some old vineyards.
We started looking for a farmhouse in nature.
Here we have the shop vac, the vacuum cleaner, which you can use to suck up all the sawdust.
We call it our tool tower. It has like screwdrivers and smaller tools. We like to reuse as many things as possible. We heat the house using firewood. We only cut dead trees.
So part of our property is this small chapel over here.
So it's the first year that we're growing a vegetable garden here. The method that I'm using is the no-dig method, where you don't really work the soil or only minimally. We have a house and oh my God, it's so beautiful here. We almost say that every day.
Imagine a world in harmony with nature, with others, and with ourselves. A world where people are nourished by diversity and beauty. Do you believe it can exist? Utopia. Discovering dreams that are reality.
I'm Isis.
And I'm Bertus.
We are in the north of Italy, in the region of Piemonte, in the Langhe area.
We live on an old farm that has been empty for about 20 years. And we have about 16.5 hectares of land, some meadows, some forests, some old vineyards.
We wanted to buy a house without getting a mortgage, and so we were quite limited in how much we could spend. We were looking specifically for a house where we could live in as it was. Behind me is the part where we currently live.
Our farm, the Cascina in Italian, has about 6 outbuildings, I think, and 28 rooms.
My mother was already living in Italy, and because we know Italy quite well, Italy was a sort of the self-evident place to go visit properties. This is the beginning of our rainwater harvesting system. We built these this winter. We catch our rainwater for the vegetable garden in here, and it's not as much as we need, but we will be expanding the capacity with extra barrels over the next few months.
We are half off-grid. No sewage, no gas. There is a telephone line, but we're not connected.
And we also don't have television, so sort of in between.
Yeah.
We do want to become, or we're working towards becoming, more self-sufficient for energy. We have 8 hectares of wood, and we heat the house using firewood. We only cut dead trees. This is going to be my mom's house. This was the old cantina, the winery. This one was one of the few farms in the village that made wine commercially, so not only for their own use, but to sell. It has been used for as a hayloft for some time, but because there are several fireplaces in here and over there and at the end there, we think that at some point this was also used for something else, for living, but that's already a really long time ago. Well, I decided at some point it's enough, I'm stopping this. My contract was finished and I was looking for a new job at university, but I was like, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to work for myself, and I've always done photography as a hobby, and that's when I started working as a photographer, mostly weddings, but also portraits, and for branding for other companies. And then COVID happened, and that's when I started working as a coach, mostly for other photographers or other creative business owners. And that's also partly what allowed us to move abroad, because that's work that I could do remote and that I could do anywhere. I didn't have to be in the Netherlands to do that. So that's still, but I'm doing less and less of it. But still, one of our income streams comes from coaching. For us, this room was really a surprise. We knew that there was a cellar here, but when we first visited the house, the key to this door was lost, so we couldn't go in. So we only saw this after signing the papers.
Yes.
This is the old wine press. So the grapes went in here, and then you could like screw down this platform to put pressure on the grapes, and then the juice would come out here, and you could catch it with a bucket or a bowl. Or
I studied historical geography at university, and afterwards, during my study, I already started a holiday job in a local historical theme park, you could say, near my hometown. And so when I stopped studying, when I got my degree, I decided to pursue a career of some sorts at that theme park. I started riding horse, started making my own armor. I was taught by people at the park, and then I started being a jouster professionally, so a knight on horseback in armor.
So here there's a little cellar, which in local dialect is called it infernot. In Italian, it's infernotto, which means little hell. And it's a cellar that goes under the street and is carved out of the natural rock. And it has a constant temperature, so the whole year round it's around 7-8 degrees there. So that was before electricity. That was the fridge, where they kept the wine and the prosciutto and the vegetables and everything at a constant temperature. So our main source of income is our YouTube channel, Stories from the Cascina, which means stories from the farmhouse. And that allows us that pays our bills, electricity and water, so we don't have any rent.
Here we are in the old cow barn, which we turned into a workshop, still turning into a workshop. This half is the woodworking department, and over there will be more the metalworking stuff. I made this workbench last year, and now I'm working on a second workbench, this one, where we can put the table saw in. So it's more easily to make big projects in wood, like the shutters that we were going to replace on the west wing of the house. Here we have the shop vac, the vacuum cleaner, which you can use to suck up all the sawdust from the table saw and from other saws that you have around the shop. You can switch the hoses with. I'm going to give it a more permanent place. It's currently attached to this tower, but I'm going to put it in that corner over there, so I don't need to roll it around the shop all the time.
We call it our tool tower. It has like screwdrivers and smaller tools in there. That was built from
measuring stuff, you know.
Yeah, and he built it from an old desk, I think, that we found here in the farm. So we like to reuse as many things as possible. Where I think almost every day we still feel the same thing. And that's like, oh my God, we have a house. And oh my God, it's so beautiful here. We almost say that every day.
Still a bit of unbelief, I think. Like, is it ours? Yes. What?
The green shutters on the ground floor we have just restored in the past month. And we're going to do the same thing for the first floor so that they are all the same. So these shutters on the ground floor were already there and they were still in good enough condition to restore. So we just sanded them and painted them. But for the first floor, they are really old and falling apart. So we're making new shutters for that. And that's why Bertus is building the table for the table saw.
When we saw this house and we were making an offer, we knew this was going to be a project for the rest of our lives, really. And if you know that and you accept that, that's all there is to it. And I like making things, I like working with my hands and thinking about things, researching things.
The goal is more to leave it better than we found it than to finish it. It will never be finished. I mean, even when you have fixed everything that's broken and when you have made everything look pretty, by that time you will have to start from the beginning again, because that's maybe in 20 years and then new things will be broken again. So I think with something like this, it's never finished and it's okay, even if we don't ever get around to making everything, finishing everything, you know. If some of the buildings are still looking the same as they are today. And now we're entering into my world. So it's the first year that we're growing a vegetable garden here. I've grown vegetable gardens before when we were still in the Netherlands. So this year we're starting with 6 beds and next year we're going to double that. So the piece with black plastic behind me is for next year. We have a little bit of everything: strawberries, peas, turnips, lettuce, rocket, potatoes. And so the method that I'm using is the no-dig method, where you don't really work the soil or only minimally to not disturb the soil life. I'm using polyculture, which means that you don't grow a lot of the same vegetables in one bed altogether, but that they're a little bit mixed, which reduces the pests and diseases in your plants. The idea is to have 8 in the future, or next year, hopefully, to have 8 beds with annual plants, and then around this whole border, also on the other side, to have mostly perennial plants growing there, and also lots of flowers to attract pollinators to help with the pollination of the vegetables, and yeah, to attract bees and stuff. Here, usually vegetable gardens are only started in late April, May, when they plant the tomatoes outside. Before that, they first have to plow the soil and add the compost, manure, and so it all takes a little bit longer. But with this system, you can start your garden already in February, which is really nice. I think that we had lots of different skills that we picked up from watching other people, having friends who do construction work, family. I have a carpenter, one of my uncles is a carpenter, and stuff. So, and observing other people doing things and then applying that ourselves now, that all of those things kind of come together in this place. Also, when we don't know something, we go search for it. We go on YouTube or on Google, or we read books. Also about lime plastering, for instance. I've read some books because it's quite specific. We don't actively use it, but this is kind of the old stuff that we want to keep because we think we can do nice things with it still. Lots of these things are old agricultural tools, attrezzi. This was for the ox to pull the cart, and that big curved piece of wood there is an old plow. Some more ox. But the old things are really like rare and antique and telling the story of this place. So we want to incorporate them somehow in the future as decoration, or in a sort of, maybe we'll make one of the hallways into a little museum, or we'll see. But these are the things that we want to save because we think we can keep them.
We mostly hear bird song, and in the summer I think crickets.
Crickets.
Lots
It's
of crickets.
just started a few days ago, the first crickets, but now you can't hear them because of the wind.
But also in winter we heard wolves a few
Yes.
times.
And the barking of the deer. But it's very quiet, usually, mostly nature sounds. So we have 8 hectares of meadows, and they are cut once a year by one of our neighbors who's a farmer, so he gets to keep the hay for his cows. But we're also, because we have a lot of wildflowers growing in here, many different varieties. There's some buttercups and wild sage and wild orchids of different varieties, mint also, and that's great for the bees. So we're also talking to a local beekeeper to maybe over the next year put some beehives on the edge of our meadows as well.
I think one of my reasons of moving to this area was that I could live in the hills but see the mountains.
This is one of our favorite spots for having breakfast or also for an aperitivo in the evening when it's just the two of us. The sun sets right about behind Bertus, and on a clear day you can see the Alps from here. Of course, we have smaller dreams within the big dream. I mean, I dream of painting the facade of the house because it will look more beautiful. I dream of being self-sufficient with vegetables throughout the summer. We're not there yet. We've just started a vegetable garden. So there's smaller dreams within the big dream. But I think
I've been dreaming half of my life of having my own workshop.
this is our firewood for next winter, but it all still needs to be chopped in smaller pieces. So that's my job for the fall and the winter. Well, we also have lots of people friends and family who come here to help us and to also enjoy the beautiful surroundings, volunteer and work with us and learn from us and with us at the same time, because we're also always still learning.
So part of our property is this small chapel over here, which is probably 15th or 16th century in age. And even though it's quite barren in here and quite sober, I really like the simple architecture that you can still see in the stonework that they made.
Sometimes there are arguments or disagreements or fights, but we know that we can do this and that we enjoy doing this. I really can't imagine anything else now. It's nice to be doing this together. So we're going to turn this old kitchen into a new kitchen, so that when we renovate the ground floor where we are currently living, we have another kitchen to live in. We mostly live in the kitchen because that's where the the wood stove, that's where the wood stove is. So it's in the winter, it's warm there and comfortable. That's where we edit a lot of our YouTube videos. So we need a new place for that, and that's gonna be this space. And what's really cool about this old kitchen is that it has an old bread oven that still works and that we have used on occasion to bake pizza. So we're going to keep this because it's a lovely feature, and I also enjoy baking bread as well as pizza. So it will definitely get more use. But the plaster was in quite poor condition. This wall is the best wall actually. So we need to redo the plaster, and we will probably also keep one wall with the pietra nuda because it's such a beautiful feature. So that will probably be the wall where you can see the stones. I think when you start something like this, you have to be able to embrace the uncertainty. Our human brain likes to be certain of things. It likes to know up front when you start something like this. Your brain wants to know, will I have enough money to restore this house? Will we manage to do all these projects? Isn't that too difficult? Will my body do that? Will I stay healthy for long enough to see this finished? But you never know, and you have to be willing to not know and to figure it out as you go.
Viva, viva, viva!
Utopia. Discovering dreams that are reality.